Hello there, everybody. Welcome to Things We Said Today, our weekly Beatles podcast in which we discuss virtually anything in the Beatle world, both the group's history and also what's going on today, which is in fact what we're going to be talking about on this episode. I'm Al Sussman from Beatles Fan magazine, and I'm here with my three cohorts. First, the host of the syndicated Beatles music show, Every Little Thing, Ken Michaels. Hey, Ken.
Hi, Al.
How you doing?
How you doing?
From Examiner.com, the writer for Beatles Examiner, and any number of other Examiner columns, Steve Marinucci.
Hi, Al. Hello,
hey,
everyone.
And our resident musicologist, longtime contributor also to Beatles Fan magazine, and these days writing for any number of publications, doing classical reviews and such, Allan Kozinn.
Hey, Al. Hello, everyone.
And on today's show, we're going to be talking about, as I said, we talk about things that from the group's history as well as what's going on today, and we're going to be talking about something that'll be happening in, let's see, when this airs, it'll be exactly 3 weeks, and that is the Chicago Fest for Beatles Fans, which will be happening August 14th, 15th, and 16th at the Hyatt Regency O'Hare in actually Rosemont, Illinois, which is literally right outside of Chicago, as part of what they call Chicagoland. And our guest is the man who really created all of this, who created the fest, or as it was originally known, Beatle Fest, and has been doing it for 41 years. And that is Mark Lapidos.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Good to be on.
Hey, Mark.
Thank you for inviting me. Hey, guys.
Hi there.
So,
Al, first of all, it's less than 3 weeks already now. So whenever this airs, it'll still be less than 3 weeks.
You're absolutely right. You're the math major.
Yes, I was.
Yes. You know why I failed. So that's true. It'll be actually 2 weeks when this airs on, over this coming weekend. So it will be 2 weeks. That's right. So, why don't you give us, first of all, an overview of what we can expect at the Chicago Fest this year?
Oh, what we have this year, we have a really good lineup of guests. Bob Eubanks is our headliner. And a lot of people say, why Bob Eubanks? He hosted the Newlywed Game. He's a TV star. Why Bob Eubanks? Well, the fans know who he is. He is the guy who was a radio DJ, sort of like Cousin Brucey on the East Coast. He was on KRLA in 64 when the Beatles exploded. And he wanted to make sure that the Beatles played Los Angeles. And I don't know why. I'm sure they would have played it, but there were a lot of bids out, and he wanted to make it so it was right. And he approached Brian, and they talked, and they came to an agreement, but he had to put up $25,000, so he had to put his house up as collateral. I don't know how his wife was happy or not happy about that, but he did it, and of course it turned out to be one of the most famous of all the Beatles concerts. And a surprise addition so he'll be there talking about those concerts. He produced not only the 64 concerts, but 65, and then at the Dodger Stadium in 1966. So he has a lot of great stories. He was our guest at the last two fests in L.A. and New York. And he's a real great entertainer. He really is. People loved him. And we asked him if he wants to do a Beatley-wed game, and he said no. This was in L.A. But in the New York show, he came up to Carol and I and said, why don't we do it in Chicago? So we are going to have the world's only Beatley-wed game hosted by the only person who could host it and claim his show, Bob Eubanks.
By the way, we should give credit that the idea for that came from our occasional co-host here, Mr. Tom Frangione.
Yep. Tom approached me with that idea, and then I approached Bob, and he just said no. He didn't think it was right, but he thought about it, and that's when he said he wants to do it. And we're very excited about that. Now, the addition that a lot of people do not know yet, unless they read our email blasts, is that we have located and invited, and he accepted our invitation, the man who played the Beatles on the U.S. radio first, from WLS in Chicago, the one and only Dick Biondi. He'll be coming on. I've scheduled it right before 6 o'clock on Saturday evening, so that he'll be on for a little while, and then we'll have both Bob and Dick together for the first time in a long, long time talking Beatles. And there's two legendary announcers, DJs, and who else but Terry Hemmett, our own legendary.
Yeah.
Will be doing the talks with them.
Yeah. For a radio geek like me, that's going to be a big deal.
Did any of you hear about that or hear that tape from the guy in Delaware? Did that make the rounds?
Which one?
This guy in Delaware, he's a first-generation fan, taped 8 minutes or so of the WLS radio show at night, because Clear Channel Radio. I know I used to get WLS at night in the Catskills in the summer regularly. And people in Chicago could get New York WABC. Those are the two big 50,000 watt stations.
Right.
So this guy taped 8 minutes of it and played, I forgot the songs he was playing, but then he said, then Dick Biondi, it's all Dick Biondi. And then he announced, here are the Beatles. Wasn't the first time playing it, but it's got to be one of the first few. It was Please Please Me, dated, I think he said it was February 20-something.
Right.
In 63.
In fact, Robert Rodriguez has posted it a couple of times.
Okay, well, we posted it on Facebook.
Right.
And it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I'm sure the first time he played it, I'm sure he made a big deal about it and talked about it. But we'll find out in person when we speak to him.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, he may not have, made a big deal of it, because let's face it, at that point, they were just another group on VJ Records with their name spelled wrong on the record.
Right. Well, maybe the head of VJ made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Yes, that's very possible.
A free gambling
being
bet.
in Chicago, it's very possible.
It is.
Also, one of the reasons why they were played on that station is because VJ Records was based out of Chicago.
Absolutely.
So they knew the DJs there.
Yep.
So, a lot of people think that I Want to Hold Your Hand was the first song that was played in America, and that's certainly not true. You got to go back to the other singles that were released in 63 here.
Yeah, they were all played at some point in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
He's credited. You guys figured out with Bruce Spicer and a bunch of other experts.
Right.
Came up with that he did it because he was playing new music. I think he still does on his show. The guy's 83 years old, I believe. He's still doing the late night shift from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. 5 nights a week. So being a DJ must give you good blood, because Cousin Brucey does it twice a week at night in New York.
Yep.
Serious. And it's great to hear those voices, those legends.
If you guys can track it down, look for the Kozinn series that Biondi did.
Yes.
That is, it's awesome. It's one of the better.
Those were all his? I didn't know that.
Well, actually, just
No,
one,
not all.
one was his.
Yeah, right. Just one is his. But his is great. His is fantastic. I mean, his is one of the better ones in that series. I have the whole series. And his is one of the better ones. Another good one is Arnie Woo Woo Ginsburg, with who I grew up with in Boston. And actually, if we wanted to, if I wanted to really drag the show off its topic, I'd ask you about your memories of New York radio, because I was in New York in '65 or in '66 when the Beatles came to Shea and heard them on heard Brucey on WABC. So that whole era was just fantastic, and Biondi was such a great part of it.
Yeah, well,
in fact, Mark, you probably would remember this. The night that they were in the Warwick Hotel, and Brucey presented them with the Order of the All-Americans medals. We were talking about that with Dave Schwensen on the last episode.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, I don't remember. I wasn't listening that night, I guess.
Oh, that's right. You were probably at Kutcher's.
No, this was afterwards. No, I got back from Kutcher's on January 5th.
No. This would have been in August of '65.
Yeah, I had trouble getting ABC at night. I could get it during the day, and I could get it at night, but it was in and out. It was annoying. Mm-hmm. So I brought my record player up there. That's where I bought the Revolver in the only record store in Monticello.
Really?
Yes.
See, now I was Mark. I was in Morris County in Hanover. We had no trouble getting WABC there.
Well, this is like 90 miles, 95 miles from Manhattan. Mm-hmm. So you can get it in Chicago, but you couldn't always get it in the Catskills. It wasn't always easy. But
you were the other way. Okay, you were in the Catskills. See, I was in Jersey.
Right, Jersey was much closer. Jersey.
Mm-hmm. Now we've totally gotten you off the track of.
You have. So that was our first guest. Let's see where the second guest will take us. Okay. Let me see. How about Louise Harrison? Dear old Louise, George's sister, big sister, took care of him, nursed him back to health during their first arrival in America. And she hasn't been a guest in 16 years, I think. Mm-hmm. And she's always had her heart in the right place. And she's very sweet. And, she doesn't talk out of turn, but she tells stories. And she has a new book out, which I haven't had a chance to look at yet, but she'll be selling it in Chicago. But she's just, I'm glad we're having her back. It's been too long, and she always, she raised a lot of money for awareness for good causes, and raised money for good causes. So we're thrilled to have her back, and I haven't seen her in a while, and look forward to seeing her again. Mm-hmm. Okay, next we have a musician who's one of the top musicians in the country, Mark Rivera. Almost needs no introduction, but he is amazing. When we had Lawrence Juber and Mark together in March in the New York Fest, it's like the two guys at the top of their craft in the whole country, maybe the whole world, and they're playing together and they're feeding off each other. I remember the Saturday night. Al, what song was they? What song were they doing at that moment? Ken, were you there?
I was there.
It was magic. It was it was with Mark Hudson. Maybe it was Slow Down. No, probably wasn't Slow Down. Maybe Johnny Be Good.
Lawrence Johnny Be Good.
Doing Johnny Be Good while they were waiting for Mark to come down.
Right. No, it was after. No, it was later on it was like near the end of the year. But anyway,
Mark. I remember Mark did. I'm sorry, Mark did Got to Get You Into My Life, and that was fantastic. Right. And also Money, Money, Money from the new album.
He also did the flute for the last track of Help, last track of the soundtrack. You've Got to Hide Your Love Away.
Okay.
Which was very special.
Right.
But this was an all-out rocker, and I'm standing behind stage, and all of a sudden, Lawrence starts doing something with his guitar that only Lawrence can do. You know how good he is. Mm-hmm. And he starts playing a run that's absolutely incredible. Mark looks at him and starts doing the same thing, and it was like for 15 seconds, 20 seconds, just out and out magic that you just couldn't create you couldn't plan it. And I asked both of them, how did you do it? And Lawrence said, we just looked at each other. It was like, when Lawrence plays guitar, he's not playing, his fingers aren't playing, it happens.
Yeah.
He doesn't think about it, he just does it. And Mark is so good, he can just do the same thing. And I heard some people come up to me and actually said that to me. And other people said, Mark, it was something about tonight. It was just magical. And that was the moment. It really just was when music transcends the people who are playing it. I guess it was like the Beatles in the recording studio. Magic happened when they got together. But here are these two guys, Lawrence and Mark, and it was just absolutely breathtaking. I should actually show it in the video room if I could find it in time. Mm-hmm. So Mark will be there, and we have some surprises, musical surprises that I thought of that the Beatles may have played in the Cavern or the Hamburg days. I haven't seen it written down anywhere, but I don't want to give it away, but I believe they're going to do at least one of the two songs that I suggested. Okay, so then we have a new guest who's never been our guest before, although he attended a fest when Frida Kelly was there, Billy Kinsley, a member of the Mersey Beats,
right,
who had exactly no hits in America, but had a top 5 in England and a couple of top 20s. And he became very friendly with the Beatles. He must have played opening the bill for the Beatles maybe 30 or 40 times and got to know them. And is a native Liverpudlian. And he's got some great stories. People like Frida and Larry Kane have been telling me for years, you got to get this guy. So we got him. And he's a name that nobody really heard of here, but once they see him, we're going to love him.
Well, he was all over good old Frida. He was in good old Frida quite a bit.
Yes, he was. So, well, that's why he came to the show to cheer her on.
Right.
We got to meet briefly, and then this has been a couple of years. That was the first time. So I think it's been about 4 or 5 years since he came to the New York Fest, and now he's going to be a guest. And next guest, the man who replaced the one and only Graham Nash in that lovely group called the Hollies, Mr. Terry Sylvester. He was our guest, I think, 7 years ago.
Something like that.
Yeah. Very nice guy, a really sweetheart. And, he sang lead on, He Ain't Heavy and Long Cool Woman, or co-lead harmonies. Those were his. And you go way back. He's also a Liverpudlian. You go way back to the Hippie Hippie Shake, which, of course, the Beatles recorded at one point. And he sang lead with Blank Mind.
Swinging Blue Jeans.
Thank you. Swinging Blue Jeans. Brain cells are not what they used to be, of course.
Oh, I know that.
I know
that situation.
Oh, God. Don't go there.
Don't go there at all. And the next guy, he also was in L.A. for a guest for the first time and came to the New York show. The former president of Apple. He's got great stories. Jack Oliver. A very nice guy. I think he's a Londoner. Because how did he get the job? I forgot how he said he got the job through Derek, possibly.
I think so, yeah.
And he just worked there for a couple of years, and then they made him president in '69. So the heyday of Apple, while the Beatles were still together, and then the 2 years that followed, he's got great stories that other people haven't told before. So he's a really good guest, and I didn't see him when I was there in June of '69, but I wasn't looking for him. I was looking for 4 other guys. Found 2 of them, which was pretty good, to say the least.
Yes.
That's John and Ringo for all you listeners there.
Right.
Oh,
Friday, June 13th, 1969 is when I met John Lennon for the first time. And after that I walked around London. I went with my friend, and he was a big Beatles fan, but not a Beatlemaniac. So I'm walking around. I shook one of God's hands tonight. I got his autograph, got his picture. I want to work for the Beatles. Well, 5 years later, something happened. So there you go. But we progress and digress. Let me continue. A guy who probably none of you ever heard of. He's never been there before. A guy named Mark Hudson. Mark is our regular.
What has he done?
I don't know. He does a lot of stuff, but he really is. He's very musically knowledgeable. He's really a hardcore fan. There's no question about that. And we started something a year ago with him, in addition to all the other things he does, which is the jams at night, the Sunday musicians forum, which
I love.
It's always a highlight of the weekend. It's all the musical guests and puts them all together and comes up with topics to talk about, and like maybe rockabilly or R&B or Motown and how it connects. And
right.
He's doing a session that I named called "We Can Write It Out," where 8 people can come and sign up. It's $30 a person. There are some spaces left on, I think 1 or 2 on Saturday. That's it. And a couple more on Sunday. You sit down in the room with your instruments, and you'll write a song within 45 to 60 minutes. And then he sends the song out to all the people who participated. And it's really wonderful. You get a chance to work with a famous producer. Mark Hudson is a famous producer. Ringo and Ozzy and Hanson, #1 song, and guys called Aerosmith, not too shabby.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So.
No,
right.
Not at all. Not at all.
Not at all. So.
Yeah.
So he's always a handful and lovely to have him there and part of our circus, we'll call it. A very good part of our circus. And of course we have Liverpool returning. They've been with us for so many years they don't want me to tell anybody how many years. But it started in our 5th year, and 2 of the original members are still there, Drew and Chris, and the lineup now with Glenn and John, it's really the best lineup they've ever had.
Absolutely.
And they're the best. I mean, they only play the fest basically, and it's very special. But I know there's lots of other bands out there, but none like Liverpool. The only one who comes close is Fab Four, who are also terrific, but they use 11 musicians.
Yeah, right.
And Liverpool, and they don't try to vocally sound like the Beatles. They try to get the music right, and sometimes the vocals are pretty close, but they're not. It's musically they're trying to get right. Liverpool gets it all right.
And there is an offshoot of Liverpool that also will be appearing at the fest.
Who's that, Al?
A little group called the Weaklings.
Recording stars. Owner of the song that was voted, or that Little Steven's Underground Garage made.
The coolest record of the week.
Coolest record of the week this year. Coolest record in the world this week.
Right.
That's about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And, they were terrific. They really were very good in New York, and they wanted to bring them out, and we wanted to have them, so they're going to be playing on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, we had Glenn Burtnick on our show to talk about the new album, and he was a great guest.
He is. Glenn is he's also musically very knowledgeable, and he knows his stuff, and he plays it all the time. He's out there touring all the time.
That's a great album, too. It really is.
It is. To take and the originals that he wrote were terrific.
Yeah.
Yep. I have to go back. I haven't listened to it for about a month, but I want to go back and listen to it some more before I see them. I haven't seen them in concert out here because every time they've played in this area, North Jersey, ladies and gentlemen,
right.
Something has come up and we're unable to do it, like a snowstorm.
Yes.
They always made it.
Minor things.
So we've tried about 3 times, but we'll get to them, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Not always can get to sit and watch the entire concert at a show. So I'm a little busy.
Just a little.
Just a little.
Just a bit. Happen. So those are our main guests. We also have a few authors. A few authors, by the way. Of course, the whole show is emceed by Terry Hemmert, who voted the #1 Beatle fan in Chicago. She's been on radio forever, and she's just the best. Her her WXRT is the closest thing to album rock of the early 70s was.
It's true.
And her radio station, WXRT, is the closest thing to it. And they can play, they just can't play anything they want, but they do have a lot of latitude and can play pretty much what they like. Not quite. Yeah. And it's really special. She's wonderful. She's a really dear friend of ours. I can't wait to see them. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We get together ahead of time as soon as we come out. Either go to Gino's or some other place for nice Italian food, which is they're known for in Chicago. So we have a lot of guest authors, and you can go to thefest.com and look them all up, or I can tell you some more. We have Al Sussman.
Who?
Al Sussman is a guest author. Besides being a panel moderator and Name That Tune coordinator with Tom.
Right. Jack of all trades, I guess.
An Al of all trades.
Right.
Oh, by the way, Tom Frangione, Terry has slowed down a little bit, and she doesn't have the stamina to do the whole show anymore. So she picked out all the things that she thinks she can do, and Tom will be doing most of the other interviews. But it's only a few. Terry's doing the majority. And Wally Podrazik, who's been with us over in Chicago, will also do, he's interviewing Jack Oliver on Sunday. Main room. So we have Ivor Davis.
Who is a trip.
Yes. Al, you had the pleasure.
Oh,
why don't you talk about Ivor Davis?
Ivor is great. He's got if you can keep him on the trail of what he really wants to be talking about.
And you did. How did you do that? You can't, right?
Just kind of get him, just kind of reel him back in, to where the point is.
So who would be harder to interview, Mark Hudson or Ivor Davis?
That would be tough because Mark is another one who goes off into tangents.
Yes. Oh, there's another group who's playing. We try to get them in New York, but when we booked them, it was a Jersey artist, and they didn't want to make the trip up. The parents, School of Rock in Chicago.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm happy to have them because it's a performance-based school for music for children 8 to 18. It's a wonderful concept. So they'll be there on Saturday afternoon, and we have super guest the last year and a half, Vivek Tiwari.
Yes.
He is really the nicest guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like,
yes, he is.
I don't think he has an enemy in the world. He's just a real sweetheart and loves the shows and was so upset that he can only do one day in New York this year because he had to go on vacation with his family.
Mm-hmm.
But he came on Friday night. And
I was sorry he wasn't in L.A. because I really was looking forward, really wanted to meet him, and I'm sorry.
You know why he couldn't be there? Because he was invited to India.
Right.
So that he couldn't pass up on that honor, and I said, of course you can't pass up on it. You got to do it. But he can have some new information about the movie.
Oh, wow.
He'll have some video, some more AV stuff, but there will be new information, he told me. So I don't know what it is because he didn't tell me. I didn't ask. I figured I'll wait till I get there. This guy, Bruce Spicer, he's a new author.
Right. He's very quiet. He has to be pushed into talking.
Yes. He's the strongest author because he has 6-pound books every time he comes out. So he has to lift them all. So he's in the best shape.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, we have Jude Sutherland Kessler. She is a sweetheart.
Okay.
I read her whole book. She loves you. I get so many books in my direction. If I was to read them all, I'd have to stop doing the fest for 12 years. To give you an example, I'm reading Tune In now. I just got to page 700. I'm on the day of recording on September 11th, 62.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at. Mm-hmm. I'm savoring every page. It's really an amazing book, but I was talking about Jude. Jude's book is also amazing. She tells the story in a different way, the conversation, and I loved it. I really did. I didn't read her first 2 books. I read bits and pieces, which is what I try to do with every book. At least read a little bit of them and then come back and read more. But she's going to be on an early bird special in the main room. She has other talks. She's doing something with Kid O'Toole.
Mm-hmm.
And she's into entertaining, and she knows, and she writes it all out, and she's very efficient. I'd say the most efficient.
Yes, very, very prepared.
Yes, extremely prepared. Okay, Chuck Gunderson, we know all about him. That book he put out, Some Fun Tonight.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to read it; you just look at it, and you pick pages, pick cities, you pick a year to look at it, and you can go back and forth on it. Again, if you can get some help lifting the book.
Right.
It's an amazing book.
It really is.
Yep, absolutely. And an author of a lighter book, Andrew Grant Jackson. This book I've been reading. I have this in my office. I read it a little bit each day. 1965. It's really a good book.
Yeah.
I'm learning things about that year. I know he and other people, I know Lou Simon says 1965 is his favorite year in music.
Mm-hmm.
We had a discussion about that in L.A. I think 64 was the best. But, I may change my mind. I don't know. But it's really, the timing I didn't realize was how things fit together so well. And, some of the writers, I may not have known that they wrote the song at the same time as Dylan.
That's true.
Yes, very good. And his other book, like Where's Waldo, is Where's Ringo? That's a very popular book. We sold tons of those at Christmas time last year. David Schwensen, 50th anniversary. You guys know?
We just had him here last time.
You did. Did you know that on August 15th, 1965, a lot of people went to see the Mets and they couldn't see them because the Beatles were playing there?
Right.
Actually, who would go see the Mets in 1965? Maybe that's how many games they won that year. I don't know.
Ooh.
No, they didn't win 65. They won 53.
Did they really?
Yes.
You remember that, Al.
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
That's frightening.
Let's give a few moments of silence for these Mets fans that will, through thick and thin. You're like Cubs fans. You don't have expectations, except the Mets came through twice and won, which is good. Because I root for the Mets for the National League. But you know where I am. Before I was born, I was a Yankee fan.
Right, you and Allan.
Right.
And Allan is now a Yankee fan in Red Sox country.
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm fighting them all off daily.
Okay. But yes.
So Mark,
I
have a question. You've been doing these shows for now. It's 41 years, and you've had every year guests kind of like the ones you've just run through, and sometimes more famous, less famous, closer to the Beatles, further from the Beatles, whatever it is. I was just wondering if you've taped all of these things archivally, if you have a backlog of all of the information that has been and discussions that have taken place at the fest.
Yes, I have. I don't think I did it in 74 or 75. Mm-hmm. It was before tape recorders were invented.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think I have every one since. We've been taping. It's for the archives, and somewhere in this house, they all exist. We've been videotaping the shows for 20 years at least. Mm-hmm. And
that can be a pretty valuable resource, I mean, a lot of people who've come and spoken, probably a lot of them, some of them aren't around anymore, and the information that you've given is now archived. That's a good thing.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about, Al knows that I've been thinking about writing a book for 15 years already. The first, I wrote, I think 1992, 23, no, couldn't have been 19. I don't remember. I have it somewhere in my notes that I started writing the first few paragraphs a long time ago. Then I wrote 3 pages like 4 years ago. And the idea was, I really want to write this book. And I would like to, ideally, although the time is never enough time, to go through all those archives, and Al would help and find the quotes and the talking from the special guests and things that became part of the Beatles' lore that weren't known until they were asked about it on stage at the fest. Because there was so many stories there. And, a lot of them were unpublished, and then they would go on to write their books. I mean, there's so many people. Alistair Taylor. Mm-hmm. What a guy. He came over. Nobody knew who he was. I mean, only the hardcore fans heard of him. Nobody ever saw him. Nobody knew him. And he was one of those popular guests we ever had. Was that an understatement, Al? Or is that pretty?
No, not at all.
Really he would walk around the hotel and do little groups. People would ask him questions. He'd stop and he'd talk for a half hour. He was just a sweetheart. And he decided he was going to write a book. And, he did. And so many other guests. I know when, one of the early things I did that I was very proud of, in 1990, we had Jerry Marsden and Ray Coleman.
Yeah.
And on Monday after the fest, we went for Chinese food down the road in Secaucus, a couple miles. Mm-hmm. And Jerry had said he was thinking of writing a book, doing his autobiography. So at lunch, I said, Jerry, you think of writing a book? Here's Ray Coleman, a great writer, great author. Why don't you guys do a book together? And sure enough, they did. So that book came out, I guess, 2 years later. And it was Jerry Marsden's autobiography. The guy's still going. I don't know how strong he is, but he's still going. Ray, we lost a long time ago.
Yeah.
But he was a great guest.
He was a wonderful guest.
He had a trove of information, and he was very accurate. He was a reporter.
Yep.
So he didn't say things unless he knew about it. Wouldn't make up stories. A lot of the guests we've had over the years, they weren't, when they, in the heyday of the Beatles, people, they didn't take notes. They didn't say, well, this happened then. I mean, Alice would be talking. Victor Spinetti, same thing. He was probably the best entertainer guest we ever had. Mm-hmm. I would say that. Mm-hmm. Now, you've seen them all for entertainment value. I think Victor Spinetti was tops.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree.
But he was great. He was a great interview. I got to interview him.
Right, but I mean, he wouldn't have any idea what year. Someone would say, "When did that happen?" He says, "Oh, I don't know. It's part of my memory. These are the stories." And same thing with Alistair. Oh yeah, we went on a trip. John wanted me to buy an island in Greece, or then in Ireland, and I went and I tried to arrange this. When was that? I don't know. They're just stories that I guess when he wrote his book, he tried to figure out some of the time frame, but it was such a blur to them that the fact that any of them remember it is to our benefit.
Mm-hmm. Very few people wrote diaries in those days, even though they were working with the Beatles or they knew them. It would have been nice, but it's all from memory for the most part.
In Mark's book, he found some of the fans who kept diaries. There were some nice little bits and pieces there. I like that part of the book. Mm-hmm. Okay, so where are we next? Oh, my favorite guest. Who's going to ask me who's my favorite guest?
Well, I was going to ask you your favorite moment, but the favorite guest is probably a good start, because the favorite moments are things that happen just kind of spontaneous.
Oh yeah. Well, my favorite guest.
Answer the favorite guest, and then you do your favorite.
My
moment.
personal favorite guest was Donovan.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was such a huge fan of his. When I asked if he'd play at Atlantis on the stage, he said, "Sure, I'll play it for you." And I'm crying behind stage. I'm looking at the audience. Al, remember when the first time he was here in New Jersey?
Yeah. Very well.
You could not fit a shoehorn in that room.
No.
The room was, people were standing on top of each other. It was just complete, total fullness, like it used to be in the early days.
Wow.
And Donovan's playing all his songs, and with Liverpool, they were great. Then he does Atlantis, and I'm saying, oh my God, look at this room. I'm watching Donovan play at my show.
Oh my God.
My song, and I just lost it. It just really got to me. And he's just such a nice guy who let me play his green guitar. He came up to the staff party and played, I don't know for how long, an hour at least.
At least
an hour.
Oh, wow.
Just magical. Just totally magical. And the way one of the things he told us, it's a life lesson. This is a real good one. He said, when I'm talking to somebody, someone comes up to me and wants to talk to me, no matter who it is, that's the most important conversation in his life at that moment. So he is so focused that he actually remembers everything. Mm-hmm. He is so clear, and his lifestyle, you can tell that's how he lives. He's so in tune with himself and with the world that it just came out. And I always remember that. And I wish I was better at that. And it's hard. You get so many at the fest. So many people come up to me to talk to me. Mm-hmm. I can't always place names and faces. I can place names or see them at the fest, say hi. I'll know who they are, but to know their stories, I'm just not that good at that. But here's Donovan, international superstar. So my favorite, Ken, that was your question, or was that Steve? That was Ken.
No, that was my question. Favorite moment.
Favorite moment. Well, the Donovan moment was definitely one of the favorite moments. Billy Preston. The man was dying. I saw him in his room before he went downstairs. Yeah. He could not get out of bed. My brother-in-law is a doctor, sat with him at the side of the stage before he was going on to do a 40-minute concert. He could hardly get up on those 3 steps. So the introducer, he sort of just hardly moved. He got on the top step and leapt forward and did a 40-minute concert that was magic. I can't say it any better than magic. And what happened when Cal and I walked him arm in arm to the signing table down the hall to Jersey, people coming up to him and just like it was a Beatle. Mm-hmm. Like Paul McCartney was there and saying, I can't believe what I just witnessed. It was just something about it. Maybe he just knew that this could be the last one. Mm-hmm. He died 4 months later.
Something like that.
Wow.
I think he had only 1 or 2 other appearances in the world. Mm-hmm. He went to Germany right after that and did a small thing. But I think he knew. And he just poured his heart out.
Oh, wow.
And for 40 minutes nonstop, this guy who couldn't get out of bed, could hardly get on the stage, but you call his name out on the stage, he did what he had to do. And that's a human spirit that you have to see it to believe it. And we couldn't believe it. And yet it was happening right before our eyes. And the audience knew, because they never came out. I've walked many guests to the tables. They didn't come up to us and go swooning, no matter who it was. But they're talking like this was the greatest moment they ever saw. It was really incredible. That was a great moment. Going back a long time ago, 74, I could hardly get on the stage. I was so sick, nervous. Mm-hmm. What am I doing? What's happening? Is the doors open? Did the show start yet? I'm with Tony King, Apple's official representative, and he tells me, shows me all the instruments that we got for the charity, and he gives me shows me 6 copies of the Penguin John Lennon that John signed to be auctioned off, and John signed the 7th one for me personally, which is still the most valuable, the best possession I have. And he tells me these words. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there knowing the show is just about to start, nervous as can be, almost throwing up. And he says, John wants to come down tomorrow night to pick the winner of the charity raffle. And I'm saying that so clearly. I only told 2 people. And one was a New York City policeman who I happened to know from Kutch's. As a kid, we grew up together every summer. So we mapped it out through the kitchen. We had set up a microphone in the balcony, and nobody knew it was there. It was hidden behind the screen. And May Pang was his representative, came down Saturday with all those pictures from Jürgen Vollmer. That was directly. Jürgen lived in the Bronx. Said, Mark, I have all these photos. What do I do with them? I said, why don't you send me one of each? So he sent me, I guess 10 or 11. They were never published. Nobody ever saw them. I said, make copies and sell them at the show. So he did. And that's when May bought one of each. John saw it that night and said, that's the album cover. I'd like to take credit on that for arranging that happen. John got cold feet on Sunday. Maybe May Pang or Jim Kerr announced it on the radio that it was very crowded, which it was, of course. Sure. So he just got cold feet and went up to his farm upstate New York the next day. So he didn't come down. But it was Jim Kerr was announcing on the stage, I hear rumors that John's in the lobby. But Bob Gruen told me this just last year. He said, Mark, I went into a phone booth. For those young fans listening out there.
What's a phone booth?
There used to be telephones that were attached to a wall. You put in the dime and you dial it by hand. Anyway, he said, I called John from the lobby of the Commodore Hotel to tell him how great a show was he should come down. So, I just found out a year ago. Another great moment was in 75, meeting Mal Evans. Mal, he paid me the greatest compliment I ever had in my life. He said, Mark, this was the greatest weekend of his life. And I'm saying to myself, what I would trade for any one of his weekends in the 60s. Nobody knew everybody knew the fans knew his name. Nobody knew him. Nobody ever saw him. Hardly any pictures of him. I'm guessing in Magic Mystery Tour, we didn't have any idea who Mal Evans was by picture. We didn't know he was in the background or in the bus. He just wasn't a known person. Sure. There he was, people lining up long lines for autographs, and he was telling these stories. And then during Magic Mystery Tour at night, the movie, I'm sitting with him. He's telling me what's going on behind the scenes. He keeps talking to me. Mark, this is Paul. When we went to England, to France, we didn't have a passport. We didn't have a penny to our name. We just went. We didn't. God. It was freezing. It was like 30 degrees. We're freezing our asses off. And he's telling me stories. I wish I would have written them all down. So those are some of the highlights. More recently, well, there were just so many. I mean, I've been so fortunate to meet every single person involved with the Beatles story, except Brian. I mean, you name him, I've met him. From the Beatles to George Martin to all the people who worked there, to all our guests. And I just feel very fortunate that, and the fact that I was able to bring so many people, it added to the historical importance of the Beatles. I mean, my mother, rest her soul, she always said, Mark, you're the reason that the Beatles are still popular. She said that all along. I said, Mom, thank you. Maybe I'm helping a bit, but they're still around and they're still playing music, and they're the reason. We just.
I got to share a story that happened at one of the LA fests. Mark, I've told you this before. I was walking by the auditorium and I hear this music that I recognize. I hear this voice singing Kicks, and I'm going, that sounds like Mark Lindsay. I open the door, it's Mark Lindsay, and I just absolutely go crazy because I am the biggest Paul Revere and the Raiders fan. And as soon as he came off stage, I ran down the hall, held a program in his hand and got him to sign an autograph, and I was just absolutely thrilled. And my friend who was with me named Joe, who's probably listening, Joe, if you're listening, kidded me about that for years, and he said, you went absolutely crazy, and I did.
We had Phil Volk show up a couple of years later.
Oh, wow.
We met him at Disneyland. He worked at Disneyland.
Yeah, do you know, on our honeymoon, you met my wife in L.A.
Yes.
On our honeymoon, we were at the Tomorrowland Terrace, and we were watching this group play, and I was going, that looks like Phil Volk of Paul Revere and the Raiders, and this guy doing the electrical stuff next to me said, yes, it is him. And they actually let us downstairs below the stage and meet them. And it was him and his wife from Where the Action Is. But, oh my God, that was, yeah.
Yes, those were good days. So I told you all the guests, but we haven't said when the Chicago Fest is. Or Al, you did.
When is it?
It is August 14th, 15th, and 16th.
2 weeks.
2 weeks from when this first airs.
Right.
At the Hyatt Regency O'Hare in, actually Rosemont, Illinois, which is right outside of Chicago. It's right near O'Hare International Airport. Before we run out of time though, one thing I need to ask you about.
Yes.
Because people, a lot of people, especially in the wild and woolly world of social media, are always complaining about, the format's always the same, it's always the same. Well, it's not always the same, and in fact, the format of the fest has been changing quite a bit over the course of the last year. There are a lot of new rooms that have not been there in the past, and one of which I think really requires some explanation, is the Fabratory.
The Fabratory, yes. Michelle came up with the idea, and it's a little room, and either people who some of the guest authors, some of the guests would come in. Tom Frangione did a piece in there, and you could sit there, you can analyze, you could pick a song, you could pick a little topic, and just discuss it, only that topic. And then maybe 10, 12, 5, 15 people in the room, but it's a deep discussion, and it's not like it's like in a semicircle, so you feel like you're talking amongst friends, which you are, Beatle friends. Mm-hmm. And it actually worked pretty nicely in Jersey, in New York. Mm-hmm. Oh, speaking of New York, one thing I got to tell you guys, we did announce it last week. We are going back to Festchester, as Jessica named it, to the Hilton Westchester. Ken, I know you're really upset that 5-minute commute is for you. The weekend.
Well, for all the years I had to schlep all the way to New Jersey, it's a lot easier for me. But I'm sure the people in New Jersey may not be as happy.
The weekend of April 15th through 17th, so all the accountants can now come to see over. You know what it is? It's a lot of Jersey people, not a lot, some think of the Hudson River as a Pacific Ocean.
Yes.
That they won't go. They won't go see Paul McCartney at the Garden because it's in New York.
Right.
So
they think it's still Fort Apache, the Bronx.
Right. We have people coming from 30 states for the New York show and Jersey shows, and they come from all over the place, and not all of them fly. We have people drive from North Carolina, from Georgia, from Florida, from Cleveland, from Tennessee, even from Texas. So why are people complaining about 41 minutes difference if they live in South or Central Jersey.
Really?
It's not, if you had to go from the Jersey Hotel to Manhattan to see a Broadway show, unless you go 2 in the morning, it's going to take you 40 minutes to go those 4 miles.
It is.
So it's like, you know, there are some people, as soon as we announced, you know, as soon as the roof collapsed in Jersey in the parking lot, there were some people who said, I can't go, it's too far away. I said, it's only 40 minutes further.
Yeah.
So.
I actually love the layout of that hotel.
I only didn't like the fact that there's no escalator when you walk in, because you can't get up to that floor unless you know where the secret elevator is. But other than that, my knees are separate from the story.
Yeah, mine too.
It's a very nice layout, and we have had rooms for. And in April, we'll be able to do more activities outside. There's a terrace out there. The hotel is going to be setting up, going to correct the issue with the parking. We already have an extra parking lot, which was a little issue because it snowed on the Friday.
It snowed on that Friday, yeah.
So a lot of space was taken up. So that's next April. So we'll talk about that some other time.
Mark, let me ask one more quick question, and if you can answer this quickly. I think a lot of people kind of wish that a Beatle would show up at one of the fests, and obviously that's impossible. But can you talk about that? I mean,
I wouldn't say it's impossible, Steve. I will never think in my mind that it'll never happen.
Mm-hmm.
All right? When I invited George in '76, when I met him outside the courtroom, when he was trying to get out of his A&M contract, I offered my services as a witness to why George Harrison music should be out there and not tied up in courts. But I talked to him for at least a half hour, and I invited him to the show. He said, I'd love to. I know all about it. I've already have promotional films for the new album that I'm going to send down to the show. But I'm going to be in New York for Saturday Night Live on Thanksgiving. And of course he was. We know that famous show.
Right.
But he was very friendly. We talked Beatles. I couldn't believe I was talking to George Harrison for a half hour. Mm-hmm. It was like magical. You know, it was just, what else can I say? It was just, wow. Those moments that you never forget. The second part of your question was?
Well, I mean, I think, is there a
Beatles showing up. Well, outside of the fact that John wanted to come down on the first night that nobody knew about, Harry was working on Ringo for many, many years. He kept telling us he's getting very close to getting him there, and then he died. Mm. Mark Hudson was working on it for a while, and then
they had their separation.
They had a separation. I would think between the two of them, I think the one more likely to come would be Paul.
Really?
Yes.
Except he's always on tour. He's
always. Where's he playing this week? Oh, Lollapalooza. Well, that was last night.
Yeah.
Was that last night or 2 nights ago?
No, it's coming up.
No, that's coming up.
No. This show is on afterward. You said the show. When did this show go air? On Saturday or Sunday?
Oh, it'll air after.
First airs on Saturday.
There you go. So Lollapalooza was last night.
Right.
Right.
But yeah, I mean,
Paul does spend a lot of time in New York.
I mean, I was hoping for the New York City show because I thought he might be in town. And he was, but he left on the Friday.
Right.
And, maybe I just think at some point they're going to just get curious and say, why not?
Mm-hmm. Has there ever been any consideration of doing a video appearance, doing a video remote, of getting some kind of exclusive video thing that way?
I've never asked for video. I don't want to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want. I try not to impose on them. They have their lives,
right?
And we do the show. They know what we do. They know who we are. They're aware of us. They really they have to like the fact that we do it after all these years.
Sure.
And but for them showing up, it's not like Star Trek, not like Leonard Nimoy and
right.
The other guy, William
Shatner.
They'll come.
Yeah.
It was a made up, it was a fictitious show. This was real people who changed our planet, became the foremost famous people ever to walk the planet, in my opinion.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Mark, I have a couple of questions. First of all, I just want to know, you mentioned all the guests lined up for the Chicago Fest. You didn't mention Gary Wright.
No, Gary Wright is not scheduled.
I thought he was on the list.
He was on the original list, but we didn't. No, the mailing went out without him. Gary said he can come on Friday and Saturday only. He called me right as we're going to print.
Okay.
Oh, we did the 4-day pre-sale. Right. I know what happened, Ken. Thank you for reminding me. When we announced the 4-day pre-sale for tickets, we announced Gary Wright. He called me about, I think, just 2 days before we printed the card. He said, Mark, I can't come. I goofed. It wasn't the Friday and Saturday. It was the Sunday. I have to be there on Saturday and Sunday. He does this retreat that he's one of the guest speakers or guest appearances there, and he's been doing it for many, many years. He said, I can't do it. I'm sorry. I promise I'll come next year for sure, but I can't do it this year. So there you are, the special guest for next year.
All right. The other question I wanted to ask is, I love the stories that you told, especially about sitting next to Mal Evans watching Magical Mystery Tour. That's priceless. But of all the people that you've had as guests, are there any that you came to know on a personal level, to become friends? I mean, I can imagine doing the fest every weekend. You're running around like a lunatic, making sure everything is running smoothly, so you don't get to watch all the interviews.
No, that's right.
Like the rest of us can.
The reason why I tape them so I can listen to them. I become friends with many of them. Frida, we became good friends. Alistair Taylor, when he was over, we went to, Cal and I took him for a lunch. It was a lunch or dinner. I think it was a lunch at the World Trade Center. And it was the only time I was ever up there.
Oh, nice.
Believe it or not. That was 1984. Mark Hudson's a good friend. Louise, we got together with.
Harry, of course.
Harry, many times. We were at his house. Party. I went to a Harry Nilsson party and survived.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
It was just an A-list. And Penny Marshall was there. Shari Lewis was there. Stephen Bishop. It was the night of the premiere of The World According to Garp. How do I know that? Because the one and only Robin Williams came to the party late.
Oh, my.
We were there. I happened to be sitting next to his wife for a few minutes, and we're talking, and she lights a cigarette, and I said, would you mind if you just, this is Hollywood, guys. This is God's honest truth. Would you mind if you just hold the cigarette in the other hand? She said, oh, I'm sorry if it bothers you. I'll put it right out. She put it right out, took another cigarette out, lit it up, had no clue that she did it. No clue. Can you imagine? Maybe there was drugs around somewhere, but
no way.
So no way. So Robin Williams walks in. I got to talk to him for a little bit. It was a thrill. It's like I said to Harry. I said to Harry, I love Popeye. First thing out of my mouth when I met Harry, not from '74, of course, but this was much later. First thing I said, Popeye had just been out, I guess. I said, I really like the music. He said, I hated it. Thank you for opening up that door and make it nice and simple to start a conversation. We got famously. And in the Harry story, there were so many great things about Harry. He was known as this star that never performed.
Right.
But at the fest, he performed. Once he got on stage, you couldn't get him off. And he loved it. I think his life was so full of being medicated, drinking and drugs and hanging out with the top of the top A-list. I think Jack Nicholson was in the garden the whole time, didn't come in. I think he was right outside. That's what I heard.
Wow.
And when it came to the fest, he could just be himself, and he was just hanging. He was really good friends with Liverpool, especially with Drew and with Chris. He wanted to go out on tour with them. That was his plan the year before he died. He was recording.
Oh, wow.
Wanted them to go. There were actual physical, real plans made to really do a tour.
Oh my!
Yeah,
that would have been something.
But he had so many stories, and he was so quick. He was just there. You had to be quick to hang around with Ringo and John all the time, He was just very. You could see how. You knew, I could feel how closely he was to them, just the way he talked. Obviously, we didn't meet up with him for Gun Control until after John was assassinated. But Ringo said on TV, "Who's your favorite who's your best friend? Harry.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
So that was 12 years he was there, and I don't think he missed more than 1 or 2 fests. And it was just raised a lot of money for gun control. We recorded a record with a bullet.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
So those, I could go on and on about great moments. It was just, I just, friends, who was I still friends with? I said Alistair Taylor, we got together.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Billy J. Kramer, we see regularly now.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Honey.
Right.
We see them quite a bit. The DJs, Ken Dashow's a good friend of ours. I played golf with them a few weeks back. Just a lot of them. And got to see, to talk to them and hung out. Donovan we went to see in Asbury Park after the fest in 2003. We went out for dinner. We had a wonderful time. It was really very pleasant, and we got together with him again when he played in New York. We got to see him in another venue, and that was a big thrill. Really, he was the one who said, "Let me come. Why don't they invite me back again? Maybe in a year." This was in 2000. This was for 2013. I said, "Well, why don't we make it for the 40th anniversary, 50th anniversary, 2014?"
Mm-hmm.
Said, "You got it." So that was like a year and a half ahead of time. I booked Donovan.
The party, the Harry Nilsson party, that's a show to itself.
But I can't even think of all the guests who were there. Carol has a better memory, but there were a lot of people. And just one, Robin, how was it holding that pipe in your mouth? The whole movie.
Wow.
It was terrible.
He was amazing as Papa. He really
I hated
was.
it. So I asked him a question. I hated it. It was terrible. But it was just a thrill to meet him, It really was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was one of a kind. I don't know anyone who had a lightning mind.
No, there was
like,
nobody.
Like
he
him.
was the top of the top. He was the Beatles of comedy. I mean, nobody could touch him.
Right.
Plenty of great comedians, but nothing like Rod. You get him started. You don't have to get him started. He just self-started and just would go forever, and he was just the funniest.
If you've ever seen Inside the Actor's Studio with Robin Williams, which they had to make a 3-parter, he's asked one question, he goes off for half an hour. You don't even have to say anything.
It's very special. We miss him. Miss him terribly.
Definitely.
Sure do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, guys.
Well, this has been a
show.
Flower. It's unfortunate that you're so withdrawn and you have nothing to say.
Yes, I'm a very shy guy, aren't
Exactly.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, thank you very
much.
much.
We'll have to do a Sam Goody show at some point.
Yeah, one of these days we'll have to start telling old Sam Goody war stories because, Mark and I have been friends and colleagues and whatever for nearly 45 years.
You started in 71, right?
I started on 11/17/70.
Really?
Because
my Kaplan's son was born.
Because your first order to me, well, 2 first orders to me.
Tell the audience what my first order was.
First order was never run out of Beatles records.
There you go.
The second order was that I had to listen to a concert that night on the old WABC FM in New York by this new singer-songwriter called Elton John.
Right.
And that was the concert that became 6 or 7 months later, the 11/17/70 album.
And Mike Kaplan, who worked with us, his son was born on that day.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's also my birthday.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
Really?
Yes, it is.
1970? No.
No. No. A little earlier than that, but yeah. Anyway.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
I will see you in 2 weeks.
I will see you in 2 weeks. Absolutely.
So we'll try to see you, at least, maybe Allan maybe come down next year, and I'm sure Kenya will see you next year.
Yes, you'll see me and Ryan.
We'll see everybody else who's anywhere near Chicago. Well, people are signed up from 30 states and 3 continents, so anywhere you listen, folks, if you haven't signed up, you haven't been to a fest, what are you waiting for? There's still rooms left.
And the first one is always great.
Yep.
Yes,
so it's
August
14th, 15th, and 16th at the Hyatt Regency O'Hare right outside of Chicago.
Yep, and go to thefest.com for all the details.
Right.
Guys, thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you very
Good
much.
night, Mark.
And
Thank you, Mark.
Guys. Peace and love. Peace and love.
Peace and
Peace
love.
and love.
Alan, Steve,
Peace
and
and
Al.
love.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right. Keep up the
Thanks,
good
Mark.
work, guys.
Okay.
Good night.
Take care.
This has been a blast for Ken Michaels, for Steve Marinucci, and Allan Kozinn. We will see you next time.